and foremost, of course, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. We were talking earlier, and you were saying you had a very interesting, story of how you got into bodybuilding and everything like that. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that. That I think that's like the best place to start off.
Yeah, of course. So, um, what led me to become a bodybuilder and to become a fitness coach
Mhm.
was I call it a dark moment, but really it was a big life lesson that I learned. I had a partner at the time that I did not realize, and it was in when I was younger, my early 20s. One night we went out and he was drunk and filled with drugs that I didn't find out till later after, but he turned violent and I didn't know the signs. It was the first time I've ever experienced anything like that. And uh, it was a rough night. For about 2 hours, I had to fight for my life. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, how did I get here? What led to this? And it got to a point where I had to shut everything off. And I don't know what this is called, but I think it's like you go into survival mode. And I just
Mhm.
remember telling myself, okay, what do I need to do? And all of my emotions shut down. And I remember just reciting things over like, the pain is temporary. We just need to get through this. Um, do what you can. And luckily, after a while, I guess a neighbor heard me and they were able to pull him off of me. And I'm so grateful that they did because that's truly the reason why I survived that night. And I never gave up. And that was another thing that I was telling myself while I was in the moment was, um, we can't give up because I knew at a young age that I have had this calling to help people. And I didn't know what that was or what that even looked like. This was way before I was even a coach. Like I'm talking 6 years before I even had the idea of getting into fitness. And so after that event, I had to heal. And I remember thinking to myself, I can never be that vulnerable in the matter of like that I don't know how, like, I guess I would say, like, I had to be mentally and physically stronger, like mentally stronger. So I didn't get myself in that situation again, and physically stronger. So if, God forbid that happened, like, I would be able to like defend myself. And that was something that
Mhm.
really was hard for me to live with, was the fact that I wasn't able to defend myself. And yeah, and so I looked into things like UFC fighting, and I'm a lover, not a fighter. So I was like, no, we cannot do that. Boxing, and I happened to have a coworker who introduced me to who's now my coach and has been my coach for the past like 6 years.
Mhm.
Justin Bohannon, he's an IFBB pro,
Okay.
and he got me into bodybuilding. So sorry, that was like a long-winded answer, but
No, no, I was curious, if we can just take a step back to
yeah.
what you were saying initially. Did Was that the first time that's like have you been with this person for a while and that was the first time that something like that happened, or was this like a behavior that showed up, throughout
So
your experience with him?
yeah, so we dated for probably 2 months, and I didn't know the signs and things to look out for. And what I can recall is that, he was there was a lot of negativity. I felt like at times I was like, am I overthinking things? But really, it was he was playing mind games and right, very manipulative and narcissistic, and it just felt like the relationship was happening so fast. And so that night was the first night that he had ever put hands on me, and it just
Mhm.
happened to just go full on out where, yeah, he went to jail that night and I went to the emergency room. And it
Wow.
took me I would say, I mean, it's taken me years, honestly, but as far as like feeling safe, it probably took like 6 to 8 months. And I had moved in. I had to move in with my sister, who I'm
Mhm.
so grateful for, who helped, get me back to on my feet. And just to overcome like the PTSD that comes with an event like that. And I stuttered for a couple of months because I had concussion. I had a concussion, and then just trying to go back to normal life was really hard for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine the, person never been in that situation, but I could just imagine like the fear that you must have had in that moment that that was happening. Did you think that you were going to be able to get out of that situation, or like what were you thinking in the moment?
So in the moment, I felt alone and I was very terrified because here was someone that was physically stronger and bigger than me and was not going to stop. And I continued to stand up and get up after every
Yeah.
blow, and it only angered him more. So it was like it never settled. There was not a moment where it got easier. It just kept getting tougher and tougher and tougher. But I'm blessed with really good parents who instilled in me, especially my mother, that you don't give up no matter what. And she is a what is it, like typical Mexican mom, super protective, and is like, you do everything with heart, and if you're in a difficult situation, you have to overcome it. And so I just remember thinking to myself in that moment, like, and this is like a little sensitive for me, but I remember being like, I want my mom, like
Hmm.
and I having that like kid instinct, like I need my mom because how am I going to do this? How am I going to get through this alone?
Yeah.
And then I told myself, this is nobody's fight but your own, and you have to get through it.
Mhm.
And and that's when it clicked. And I said, okay. And I don't know if it's like some kind of instinct or just survival mode. And I shut off everything. And I just remember thinking, okay, what is it I need to do? And it was just kick him off. It was
Hmm.
punch him back, and it was to run, and it was to scream. And like I
Hmm.
said those four words over and over. And the bigger picture was don't give up because you're meant for more. And I remember feeling like, okay, I remember feeling like I have like I was like earlier I touched on, like I always felt like I've had this mission to help people. And so when I went into that mode, like I also had this sensation of like I have to survive this because there are people who need me. And
Hmm.
I don't know what that looks like yet, but I know that I'm destined for something more and something bigger that I have no idea, a recollection of what that is right now. And so in that moment, I don't know, I shut everything off, and I just remember telling myself, like, okay, we have to get through this because there is a future for Dom. Like, this is not going to be the end all be all. And the
Yeah.
moment that I even had a slight moment where I had doubt, I would just go back to like, what are the four things? Kick, scream, run. And,
Mhm.
yeah. And so I just kept reciting that.
Yeah, it's amazing that you're able to, to even do anything because a lot of times people freeze in those situations and they don't move and they don't, and that could be, really detrimental. So you were able to at least consciously be able to physically do what you could. And you said that some neighbors were able to hear you in
Yeah,
that moment.
luckily, yeah, and I mean it was perfect timing because I remember my body was like physically giving out on me. Like my mind was still going, and I was like, okay, do these things over and over and over and over and over. And I was tired. Like after I could only take so much, right? And um oh there,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I think I'm frozen.
I can take so much. And I just remember a woman coming, and her husband or boyfriend partner pulled him off of me, and she just was asking if I was okay. And then I blacked out the rest of it, and I just remember waking up in the emergency room and then seeing my sister and my mom come get me.
Mhm.
I just remember being in a state of shock, and then I remember being in the ambulance and then getting to the hospital. But I guess I've blacked out most of it, or maybe I just was done
Yeah.
because I was physically exhausted, just mentally exhausted. But everything happened so quickly, and I think for me the biggest like takeaway was that like fighting for my life taught me how mentally strong I was, and I carry that into when I do a prep for bodybuilding.
Mhm.
I know like if I could get through that, I can get through anything, like and I don't mean to like laugh about it, but like it is a dark, touchy subject.
Yeah.
And healed from it, and I want to share my story because I know that there's other women that go through something very similar. And and that's like the bigger picture for me, is to be vulnerable and open about it, which is tough. And this is my first time like meeting with someone and talking about it
Mhm.
openly. So, but it has to be done because I want other women to see that you can overcome these kind of situations and thrive and step into the next best version of yourself. You can grow from it. Don't go back to that, relationship. There's better on the other side.
Well, and that's what I was gonna also mention. A lot of times what you see is people going back to the same situation over and over and over again. And the fact that it happened to you once, and even though you said there were some signs, but the fact that it happened to you once and then after that you cut everything,
Yeah, I was
out,
like,
cut it
nope.
out like a cancer, and I mean, that's impressive because so many women just continue going through that cycle, and eventually, you either end up just in such bad shape or dead, really, that can also happen. So,
Yeah, I don't know if it was just because it was so extreme and so sudden, and then I saw how it impacted my friends and my family and my job. I was a store manager at the time, and just like trying to show up for myself and others was really hard. And I think that's something that weighed heavy on me, was that I couldn't do that because I was, healing and trying to get back on my feet. But yeah, and I think like 7 or 8 out of 10 women will go back, and I
mhm.
understand why, and I afterwards, when it all happened, um, I looked at the statistics, and I was like, I'm not going to be part of that. Like there's no, like, I've got to better myself because I have to take accountability for the fact that I got myself here. And yes, the situation wasn't my fault, because you should never, result to that, violence. But, I educated myself. I did the research. I was like, let me do therapy. I started having conversations with people and letting them know, hey, this is what I'm going through. And then I would get, some like insight to, oh, you should look into this, or you should watch this YouTube video that talks about how to like cope with certain things and address the root of the issue to why drew in that relationship. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough because if it's not your fault, but sometimes people tend to gravitate towards the same kind of people, and like you said, you have to kind of ask yourself, well, why are you gravitating? What are you either not seeing, or what are you looking for that's you shouldn't be looking for? There's all kinds of questions, that you can go down, but I totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, obviously this is not something that's a good thing, but you allowed it to propel you forward and make it a positive. So then you get into bodybuilding with, you said, who's your coach now, friend from work, right?
yeah, Justin Bohannon,
Mhm.
he was building his empire, so to speak, because now, I mean,
Mhm.
he's done really well for himself. And now I coach on Team Bowflex, and I never would have thought back then that I would have been a fitness coach. To be honest, like, it's one of those things where like you never thought, but you're so grateful for it, and you're like, cool,
Yeah.
this is why X, Y, and Z happened, and why X, Y, and Z didn't happen. Like, but yeah, and so Team Bowflex is his team, and he went pro, I believe, last year. So he's been working really hard and diligently to go pro and grow his team, and then grow all of us coaches that are on his team. And I've just been blessed to be a part of it and see the growth.
Yeah, that's amazing that he's facilitating, like, he's not only just keeping it for himself, but allowing it to spread to other people. Obviously, you're someone that benefited from that. And so when you started bodybuilding, did you see yourself competing? Was that something that you were looking for right from the beginning, or were you just, I know you mentioned trying to get stronger, mentally stronger, but as far as like the sport is concerned, or were you just wanting to coach other people?
So I was just trying to compete myself and look. My thing was like, let me look physically stronger. And I remember seeing on Instagram girls posting and about doing their competitions. And I had a friend who did a competition, and there's a federation called NFF. So it's a
Okay.
naturally fit federation, and they're great. They provide a really good experience for my clients and myself as well. I did my
Mhm.
first show with them, I think in 2019, and I did bikini, and this was right before wellness came out. So I did the show as just like a bucket list slash let me look stronger. Had no idea it was going to drastically impact my mental health and lead to a new career. Knew none
Mhm.
of that, didn't even think that. And I really enjoyed it. And Justin was a really good coach. And so after that, Justin and I had a conversation of, okay, well, what's next? And he said, there's this new division called wellness, and I think it's coming over to the United States. So and my
Mhm.
background was all soccer, so I've got decent sized quads, or back then I did, and the feedback was like I was too pretty muscular for bikini,
Right, right.
and I needed to be way more conditioned. Um, so then yeah, so we started training for wellness, and I competed in my first NPC show. Was it 2021, I believe, and went into overalls, and it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And the feedback was, bigger glutes, bigger everything,
Everything bigger. Yeah.
everything bigger. So and so ever since then I've just been building, and now I'm at a point where I've worked on my body physically, and I did a lot of inner work, and I'm ready to hit the ground running. And I'm 20 weeks out as of this week. Yeah, 20 weeks out for my first show this year.
What show are you doing? Do you know?
The Phil Heath.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a good show to do. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, I'm really hyped for it. I literally took all last year. I was really serious in my off season. I dialed in. Justin and I had a lot of good conversations, and he's a good coach, because, or a great coach, because he not only gives you like a plan and says, here, you need to follow this, and here's the workouts in the meal plan, right? Like that's what everyone does. But he really does his job at he's really good at honing in on like what you personally need to work on. And because
Mhm.
we've been together for so long, like he's been my coach for 6 years, he
Yeah.
knows me to my core, right? And I also
Right.
work. So like, and so we had a lot of good conversations on like things that I needed to work on, just being more mentally tough, and things that I needed to overcome, removing blockages, and removing people that didn't serve me anymore. And so I did all that in 12 months. And so that's why I'm like, okay, we're here. My mentality is good. It's better than ever. And I'm ready to compete.
That's so a lot of mental work too, is from what I'm, hearing. Is besides just getting bigger, also a
Right.
lot of mental work. Yeah. I mean, and that's sometimes people don't think about bodybuilding being a mental sport, but I feel like, you know, that is the part that people end up struggling with. So I wouldn't necessarily call it like majority mental. Some people do, and I understand that, but I would say that's the part that defines if you're a good bodybuilder or not. It's the mental side. So like there's a lot of people that can do the physical part, but the mental part, if you can't get that down, you tend to struggle. And you kind of see that with some people.
Right. And I've had my fair share, because I've done a couple of shows, and I always reflect afterwards, and I'm like, okay, I could have done this better, or I really let my body dysmorphia get in the way of the last few weeks. Or and you look at old photos from when you were on prep, and you're like, damn, I was really lean. Like what was I thinking? And thinking in that moment, like, you're second guessing yourself, and what have you. But yeah, I truly believe a lot of things in life are all mental, and it's how you perceive it. And
Sure.
so yeah, and that's why I love bodybuilding, because it challenges me mentally more than anything. The physical stuff, I can go to the gym, I can lift heavy, I can eat the food, I love to eat food. It's just um so that I really believe it's all mental.
Yeah, it's interesting. How was you said you did, if I remember correctly, you mentioned you did do one wellness show, right? Correct?
I've done, yes. So I have done I did one in 2021, and then I did one in
Oh,
2023.
so you did a couple.
I've done a couple. Yeah, yeah.
How was that transition into wellness, being a newer division? Now it's been around for a few years, but how was that at the very beginning? Was there a lot of different types of physiques where girls tend to be bigger, small? Like how did you perceive
Yeah,
it?
it's interesting to see the evolution of it. And like even at the pro level, because like I know like there's some pros that I follow that will show when they first went pro, and then you compare it to who's going pro now, and it's like
Hmm.
day and night. And all of these women are just so beautiful and graceful, and they're the even like the posing is so different, and it's like we're trying to figure out. And I think Mia, is it Samuels or Sanders? She's a pro on this. She talks about how, we have to remember that it's from South America. And so you have a Latin flair. It's a little
Hmm.
more flamboyant than your typical, bikini, and of course bigger, totally different.
Hmm.
But so even for me, like I love posing. That's where I'm able to like get into a flow state. And that's my one of my favorite parts about bodybuilding, besides the mental piece of it. And so for me, I've been really observing how the posing has been changing as far as like even the mandatory poses and the routines and just the overall physiques. Like, of course, like you said earlier, like the feedback, just go get bigger, grow the glutes. But
Yeah,
and that stuff just takes time. So
sure.
it's cool to have started in a division when it first was launched to where it is now. It's an honor to be a part of it, honestly.
Yeah, I personally think it's like one of the best divisions they have. I mean, obviously I like all of them, but it's one of my favorites. And I feel like initially there were a lot of girls that had just almost bodybuilder style legs where they were just gigantic legs, and that's kind of like what people thought of wellness, at least in their mind. And I think the judges did a great job in really letting people know like what wellness should look like. Um, Fran winning the Olympia, I think really set the standard. And now, of course, Issa, taking over. What do you think about that? Do you feel like
Yeah,
Fran should have lost, or it's it
I
was
mean, oh, it's so crazy because I know I've watched several videos, and it's like when you get to that level, it's like every little thing is considered and
mm,
critiqued. And I see how they did the side by side of Fran and Issa, and it's like, oh, come on. It was just probably like a second of her standing in that position, right? But that's all that it took,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it's like, okay, at that level, you have to be on all the time. Like there is no let me slack or just when you think that someone's not observing something, like they truly are. Like you're on stage to be judged for a matter of seconds. And so you
right.
gotta, be perfect, so to speak, which is really hard. So I don't know. I go back and forth, but I'm
Yeah.
so happy for Issa. I've followed her journey for a long time now. And I mean, she deserved a win. And so she showed up and was present 100% of the time on stage. So I guess I have to agree with it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, it's it really is. You can't really definitively say who should have. I mean, we know who won, who the judges thought won, but it's because they're at such an elite level, because you're basically, just it's hairline differences. It's very hard to say, especially, if you're not the judges, you don't know what they exactly were looking at, because they both fit the criteria perfectly, so it's hard to say. I mean, I know Issa's at least she appears to be a little bit thicker, a little bit more denser. It's again, I think it's just it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. I'll
Right.
be
I'm
curious to
curious
know.
to see Eduarda. She's the one
Hmm.
that placed third.
Yes, yeah, I know. I remember her. Yeah.
Yeah, so she is my favorite bodybuilder in the wellness division at the
Hmm.
moment. I just love her story and how she ran it and qualified for the Olympia. And so I'm really excited to see how she shows up in this Olympia.
Yeah, there was a girl I had on this show, wellness competitor Mia, and she, right before I had her on the show, she was competing, I think like in a week or two at a competition with Eduardo in the same stage. So she was very excited to see how she would do against her because she knew she was coming, Eduardo was coming up fast and, pretty hot in that. And then shortly after that, she got third in the Olympia, and everybody's like, okay, she's definitely, elite level coming in third, so.
Yeah, I saw your video with Mia. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
If she watches this, Mia, I want to pose with you because she's an amazing poser. I love
Yeah.
watching her videos on Instagram.
We'll tag her. So make sure
Okay.
she's so you're 20 weeks out. You said you did a great job in the off season to build. Was there anything specifically that you did outside of the mental side? I mean, we talked about that, but how was your like eating? Were you just pounding calories, or was something very specific that you ate?
Yeah, so it was I mean food did increase. I eat a lot. I think I eat a lot. Most people tell me I eat a lot and they're like, "Dang, you eat every 2 hours." I'm like, "Yeah, I do," and I love it. But and then hitting legs, lower body 4 times a week. But I had just moved back from Florida in last January. And so what made a huge difference was I was able to work out with my coach once a week. And so
Okay.
once a week, I made the commute from South Austin to Georgetown, which is like, it's like 45 to 60 minutes,
Hmm.
just to meet with him and train. And his training intensity is high level. And, we both understand the mission is like to grow glutes and to grow quads. And so we've hit it really hard. And so a lot of lower body days,
Yeah.
lifting once a week, eating us in a surplus, or all the things that we needed to do. And then focusing and honing in on recovery. I really worked on my mobility. And I think that allowed my lifts to be next level,
Hmm.
as far as like me able to get certain depths and certain lifts and
Hmm.
add on the weight and not have to worry about risking injury. That's one thing where
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I need to recover like a pro. I can't be not stretching. I can't be not dedicating a day to like really just having like a mobility day. That's something that I really dialed in on in this off season.
I agree with you about the mobility. I had a situation years ago when I was doing presses, leg presses, and I realized that there was a lack of mobility because my legs would only go down like a certain amount. And then I was like, well, this can't, I can't like stay at this level. I have to increase my mobility so I can have that, like you said, the depth
Yeah.
of pushing your legs. Were all your days heavy, or do you like cycle between
Um,
volume and weight?
yeah, really, I try to listen to my body, but at the same time, I do try to push myself. Um, I think it's because I've been doing this for so long. And by so long, I mean like 6 years. I feel like
Mm.
that's an adequate time to really get to learn how your body
Sure.
reacts to things and to know when, okay, this is my stopping point. Like I really shouldn't I shouldn't allow my ego to get in the way and try to add on another 245 plates on each side. Realistically, I try to tell myself, okay, we need to build up to it. And so I am consistently challenging myself and tracking my lifts as far as the weight that I'm pushing. And so I'm able to view it and be like, okay, scientifically and like based off of what I know about myself, can I add more or should I pull back? And I do like deload weeks where I take it a little bit easy. And again, it just kind of goes back to just me knowing how my body is and whether I need an extra rest day that week. And I communicate with my coach a lot. And again, this is something that he's really good with is I'll let him know like, hey, I feel like this is a red flag. What are your thoughts?
Hmm.
And then it's a partnership and we go from there and make the
Right.
decision.
I think that's part of the biggest problem, is when athletes don't communicate with the coach enough because um, some of the issues I've had with some clients in the past, it's not an issue anymore, but um, that they would let me know that there's a problem way too late.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's that late, I almost can't do anything about it. And so keeping up with your coach is extremely important because you can make adjustments as you go,
Yeah.
and keep getting better. So I think that's an amazing thing. And the fact that you have this great relationship with your coach will go a long way. That's one thing in bodybuilding that you see a lot of issues with, especially this last year. Matt Jensen and all the stuff that was going on with that is that the infighting between coaches and athletes. That's quite a common theme. So when you can find a good coach that you can stay with and grow with, that's so important.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's what I've always told Justin is that as long as we're both growing, and I want to be his first IFBB pro, and that's the big goal of mine because
Hmm.
he's got pros in NFF, and I've got pros in the NFF Federation as well, but
Hmm.
we've yet to touch with as far as NPC,
Right.
um, and so I think we have a unique relationship because I've stayed with him for so long. I see too many times where competitors like to jump ship and, oh, I didn't like the feedback that my coach gave me. And one thing is that Justin is very honest and he's a very genuine person. And I feel like I match that energy with him. And so we're able to work through a lot. And there's things that he tells me that I don't like. And I'm like, oh, that hurt my feelings, but okay, I get it. Bigger picture, you're here to help me and support me. He's a really good person. He's a really good man. And so I think that that is what has helped us be so successful. Because I'm not sure if you've seen my starting point and the physique where I'm at now, but it's day and night. And I need to post it on Instagram. I posted it on a reel that I posted today, but I can send you those photos.
Yeah,
And
so I saw some stuff. I'm not sure if that's the same thing that we're talking about, but I definitely am going to add photos to this
okay.
interview. So as you guys are watching it, you'll be able to actually see what we're talking about. But I definitely feel like your progression, just even in the photos that I am watching and seeing, is pretty impressive. I don't think it's too wild to say that you're going to get your pro card. I mean, the IVB, even though they give out more pro cards now than
Yeah.
they did in the past, there's also way more athletes now than there
Mhm.
were in the past. So it's
Yeah.
still, not an easy thing. It's still a big deal to be an IVB pro. And so I definitely think that that's a good goal for you to set, and I think you will achieve it.
Thank you. I pray on it and I'm manifesting it. And, for me, like if it comes, it comes. If not, then, for some reason I have things to work on and I'm okay with that. And for me, I just love competing and I love bodybuilding because I love the ability to do the inner work and physically go to the gym, lift heavy, and then inspire others. And then through my coaching, I can help other women who, whatever their reason might be to be stronger. And if they want to compete, that's awesome. But if
Yeah.
it's just, a lifestyle, then that's awesome too. And they just want to be able to run around with their kids, I'm for that as well.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that, but I did want to mention something. Do you know who Shanique Grant is? Who she was a women's physique Olympia champion for multiple years. So I heard that she is coming back into wellness this year. She's a pro, so she's going to be, in the pro ranks. But I was curious to see what you think about like people in other divisions, like women's physique and like others that are jumping into wellness. You feel like there's like it's easy to do that, it's harder to do that. Um,
I would imagine that it has its challenges, right? Because I guess it just depends on what division you're coming from. But I was looking up Shanique Grant right now. Oh yeah, she's got her quads. Wow. Yeah, I think I saw. I don't know if it was the wellness guy that said something about her because I she looks familiar. I've seen her physique before, but
Yeah,
um
she's very well, she was very popular because of obviously like her physique, but also the fact that she's an Olympia champion. And and so her coming back in a totally different division is interesting. So I just wanted to kind of get your
Yeah,
thoughts on
I,
it.
I think it's awesome because it's probably just a matter of a new challenge. I know like Sebum, he decided to change before he retired, and everybody was like,
Right.
"Oh my God, who does that?" Sebum does that, and that was awesome and cool to see. It's just what personally I love to see it because uh it's like you're doing something that nobody expects, right?
Right.
And you're proving that it can be done. And I
Yeah.
love those kind of moments where you're like, no, actually it can. And the human body is capable of doing so much more than what we think that it can do, right? And
Yeah. And I feel like, sorry, I don't mean to
Oh no,
interrupt you,
go
but
ahead.
I feel like bodybuilding needs things like this because it's a sport where you're standing there, where you're posing, and it can be exciting, but it is a very static sport. It's not we're not j jumping, unless you're in like one of the divisions like that. But
Fitness. Yeah.
yeah, fitness, yeah, or we're not shooting a ball or anything like that. So you need excitement. What's more exciting than having, like in this case, having her jump into wellness or C-Bum jump into, open bodybuilding? It
Mhm.
kind of brings interest into the sport. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I like I said, I love to see it, and I'm excited to see how she does. I think
Yeah,
if anything, like you've got a solid foundation. I mean, obviously she's been doing it for years, and she's an
right,
Olympian, so I would expect great things. And I honestly think that she's gonna kill it. Like she's got the mindset, right? Because she's an
right.
Olympian, so she knows what she's doing. And
Yeah.
it's cool to see that transition and like to hear the story of like what it took to get there. If it was a matter of, and what the feedback will be from the judges, like bringing down upper body, because wellness is all about the imbalance, and the lower body is a lot heavier than the upper body. So
Right, right. Yeah, that you're right. I didn't think about that, but that would be interesting to hear like what the feedback would be because I'm sure she's bringing it down currently, but she's got a lot of muscle everywhere, including her upper body. So it'll be interesting to see that. But yeah. And so about your coaching is what I wanted to touch on prior. So do you coach only athletes or you coach lifestyle as well?
no, I coach lifestyle as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
What do you find most rewarding?
So for me, I find most rewarding is um, when a client gets bought in, and primarily I work with men and women, but
Mhm.
primarily it's women. And usually it's they're under eating. They have that stigma of like, oh, carbs are bad, and I don't want to get bulky. It's like, all that stuff that we've
Mhm.
heard a million times. And so like I just had a client who she's like, my energy's up. I've never felt this good. And she's getting her PhD, and she's like, I'm able to focus. I'm not having crashes in the middle of the day at 12 and 3. And she's also got I believe it's 2 or 3 kids. And so she's able to show up for her family even more. And that's something that she was just really taken back by. She's like, I didn't realize how changing my eating habits and just overall lifestyle, and like going to bed early so I can go to the gym earlier, and carving out time for myself. I didn't realize like how important that was. And like I really thank you for showing me this new way of life, Dom. And that's something she told me earlier this week. And so I love moments like that because again, like it's not we're not just changing the life of the individual, we're changing the life of the kids and the
Right.
husband, and just like the next generation, because her kids are watching her work out, and she'll tag me in videos, and her daughter's lifting a dumbbell, and like to me that is so cool because again there's so much that comes into just fitness, with like you're instilling a new mindset of like mommy's working out and dedicating time to herself. So I should do that for myself, right? Like kids are smart. They know, they see, they observe and take in everything. And so for me, that is the part that I love, is that I can see how it impacts everything, bigger picture, holistically in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right about the kids thing. I didn't, I usually don't think about that part of it because I personally don't have kids, so my mind doesn't go that direction.
Mhm.
But it's true. If you work out, if you prioritize your health, if you prioritize your sleep, your children will follow suit. Just like if eating trash and doing all kinds of other stuff, they'll follow suit in that too. So it's like you said, it becomes a generational thing. And a lot of times I do, when I interview people, they'll say, "Oh, my parents were athletes or my parents did this." Maybe they weren't bodybuilders, but they did something physical. And so they kind of always had that in their mind. So, but it has to start somewhere. So, you're helping them to start that process.
Yeah, and my parents did not work out. They didn't understand bodybuilding when I first started. Like, but my mom, like, she did. I don't know if you remember Tybo,
Yes, yeah.
Billy
Billy
Blank.
Blanks, yeah, yeah.
I used to watch her do those videos, and I remember as a child being like, "Oh, this is cool!" Like mom's working out again. Like and I would see the impact that it had on her because she did lose like 100 pounds, which was
Wow.
crazy. Yeah.
That's
And so
wild.
seeing my mom be so dedicated to something really inspired me. And I remember there was a point where she used to get oxygen magazines, and that's
Hmm.
how we found out about bodybuilding shows, like before social media, remember? And
Yeah.
they would and my mom would say, oh, maybe one day I'll do a bodybuilding show. And she did.
Oh,
I
really? Wow.
coach. Yeah, yeah, I was her coach. So NFF has a division called transformation. And
Okay.
so really it's just you take a photo in the very beginning, you track your body fat percentage and your weight, and then at the end of it, you do the same thing, and then you submit it, and they actually get to walk on stage in like a whatever, like an evening gown or something that they feel
Uh,
comfortable and confident in. And so it's a really cool, like I've had a couple of clients do it. And my mom, I think she got third or something like that, but she lost weight and she had fun. And so that was her living that dream from the past and saying, like, I want to do a bodybuilding show. Like, girl, you did it.
top,
And who
top,
would have who would have thought I was your coach?
I mean, top three. That's like Eduardo right there. Top
Yeah.
three. That's
Yes, yes.
oh man, that's pretty cool. It's interesting a lot. Some of these uh organizations have these types of divisions. And of course, like my show, the people that come on are primarily NPC, IFBB, but I had some WBFF and others, and I really think that's a wonderful thing. To because it includes, everyone. And I do believe like inclusivity is very important. I understand that some people might have issues with like so many divisions and things like that being added on. So have you heard about the fit
Wait, I think
model?
you're cutting out.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you. I heard the
Okay.
last part of it was heard was you do appreciate inclusivity
Yeah.
and
Yes, I was saying that have you heard of the new division, the fit model division?
yeah, it's
So-
I'm currently learning the posing for it.
Okay.
And I saw that there was a show, I think it was this past weekend, and they had their first winner, I believe. And even the bikini's different. I didn't realize that the bikini was going to be a little different. There's no rhinestones.
Yeah, I have a girl coming on that switched from bikini to fit model, and she's been in bikini for quite some time. And I want to talk to her about like what made her do that, but then also what are we gonna see from this division that as far as she understands it. What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to add?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Kind of like tying back to what you said earlier was that it's something new and exciting because bodybuilding can get a little stagnant with doing the same divisions, poses, and
Yeah.
everything. And so it's interesting to see them implement because like I mean wellness did I think wonders for NPC. And so
Right.
now we're doing this new division, and I think it allows room for opportunity for other women who maybe just want to just try it out and they haven't been lifting for a while, or they maybe bikini scares them because I
Hmm.
remember when I was a first time competitor and I was so intimidated just by NPC. Like
Yeah.
I remember being like, oh, I don't know, that sounds like really overwhelming. And not to say like these girls aren't working hard in that division because I know they are. But it's going to be cool to see the transition from the start to what it ends up being in the future.
Yeah.
Um, just like how wellness was, right? Regarding, and it's like, and I like holistically, like the poses, the attire, the overall look they're looking for, the conditioning, the muscularity. Like, I'm really looking forward to see how everything just changes over and evolves over time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right because it's not going to be where it ends up is not going to be where it starts. Like every division, it's going to end up something totally, well, I don't know, maybe totally different is too strong of a, but complete different from where it starts. And yeah, I'm curious to see where that's going to be. Speaking about like wellness in the beginning, so I was always a big proponent of wellness, but I listened to different podcasts and I was surprised about how many podcasts didn't think wellness was a great idea or didn't think wellness was going to do well. And I'm like, you guys are crazy if you think wellness is not going to do well in the IVB, which like it puzzled me why anybody would even think that. But I think what happens is people kind of get stuck
Mhm.
in that traditional, like, these are the divisions, these are the poses, this is the way it's been done. And so
Guideline that we must always follow.
you're right. And so, it's kind of, people kind of get stuck in that and they can't change. Thankfully, the the IVB doesn't do that. But yeah, to your point, I'm curious to see where it's going to end up for sure. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I think we covered
Did
a
we cover
lot,
everything?
covered all the points, and I know you're very busy and you've got a lot of things to do. So I appreciate your time greatly. If somebody wanted to reach out to you for more podcasts, or they wanted to hire you as a coach, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Grow with Dominique. And
Awesome.
yeah, and so and I have a link on there that they can click and get in contact with me. But truly I'm honored to have talked with you. It was a good experience. And like I said, I was a little nervous at first. This is my first time like sharing this very like personal story.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I really thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do that, because at the end of the day, I just want others to be in their light and to feel like they can achieve whatever it is that they have set their mind to. And there's no such thing as too big of a goal. It's just a matter of getting a coach and figuring out, okay, what are the steps that I need to take to get there. And so yeah, so thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Of course. And I think you never know who you're going to inspire. You never know who's going to hear these words and how it's going to change their life. And how, maybe you'll meet them at some show or some expo. And so that's just how these things work. It happens to a lot of people. So, but yeah. And guys, I'm going to link everything at the bottom here, the link to Dom's Instagram and her website. So it'll be easy for you guys to reach her. So thank you again, Dom. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, take
Have a
care.
good
Bye bye.
night.